Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Christian Cail. I'm a guitarist, professional guitar player living in New York, and I've been teaching for about 6 or so years. We'll round up to 10 and be generous, but I would like to, if possible, teach you how to play guitar if you are patient and paying and think you're up for the challenge, which I believe anybody is. To begin, if you want to know how to play guitar, you want to be truthful with yourself about what you exactly want to learn. And I would always just start with the basics. Duh. I mean, it's everybody. You start with the basics. It seems very trite, but people do it for a reason. So people have been on this instrument have been playing. The guitar is like a couple 200 years old, but before that was the lute. And people have been playing songs on these instruments for a really long time, and they've been doing these kind of open chord things. So even in the Middle Ages, you would have like maybe a little French guy with a even smaller thing, and maybe you'd have a hat with tassels or something. He'd be going and singing a song about how great the king is, or something like that, or the lord of the manor. And that's where we would start with this instrument. You want to be able to play this kind of thing. This is like conversational Spanish, but on this instrument, So you want to have that covered, and from there you can start adding some more and more fun stuff. So you've got all of a sudden it gets kind of pretty. Same basic idea as in play, but now you're just expanding things. We call those the open chords, and that's where you would have to begin. That's, I feel like, kind of non-negotiable. The other important thing is having good technique, and it's better to get that out of the way day one, because I've had students before who've been playing for years and never got a good instruction on their technique, and they've already developed a bad habit. And it's a lot harder to break a bad habit than to develop a good habit right off the bat. So I'm a big believer in good technique day one, and then just hammer that home. That way, even if you are terrible, you at least are terrible right. You're terrible with good technique. That I genuinely think that's very, very important. So the thing you gotta start off with is just the old caterpillar, and it looks like that. And now I tell you, play nice and slow. The slower the better, and then you get faster as you get better with it. And then all your scales just come out of that thing. So. And then your scale. That's how easily that stuff translates, but good technique is like invaluable for that kind of thing, right off the bat. There's a lot of different styles of music that you can learn how to play. I would never claim to be an expert in everything. That would be wrong. But I have a lot of experience in a lot of things, and I can absolutely cover a majority of your styles. So jazz, blues, rock, metal. Gee, what else is it here? Classical. Studied classical for many years. Country, folk. This is all stuff that I've done a ton of, and I've taught all of these styles over the years. So I'll just demo some of them. Jazz. You get these big pretty chords. And you got an interesting solo language of jazz. Jazz is all about swing. And making decisions. Swing and making interesting decisions. And then there's blues. Blues is a really old style of music. of thing in the blues. Okay, rock music. There's a ton of it. I've spent my professional teaching career teaching rock music mostly in like hundreds of kids, massive amount of kids, massive amount of bands, doing rehearsals and this sort of thing. And it's like a style of music that I know kind of like the back of my hand, as every guitar player really ought to. And by the time you're playing like jazz or something, then rock music is not going to be like terribly hard. But there's a lot of stylistic things you'll want to get. Growing up, I played a ton of rock music and had studied the music of Led Zeppelin almost as if it was, like a composer or something. Learned all the solos, all the everything. And rock music is a lot of power chords, depending on the kind of bands that you're playing. So you get things like. That sounds stupid, but you get things like that, and then you get like a lot of riffs. I studied classical guitar for a number of years in high school and boarding school, actually, an arts boarding school, and there's a lot of similarities between classical guitar and folk guitar and fingerstyle in general. A classical guitar, you'd have nylon strings, but you get things like, I'm improvising right now. You get this kind of, these kind of. And that kind of dovetails with like a lot of your folk kind of thing. Which maybe sounds the best on this guitar. Yeah, sort of similar things as fingerstyle stuff goes. Music theory. It's a big, scary concept. It makes children cry. It makes people flee their village. It's not as crazy as you might think. Actually, what theory really is, in its essence, is a way for us to use language to describe things that you already hear. So most of your theoretical concepts are things that you already are hearing. You already have an intuitive understanding of these things for the most part. You just have to put like a face to a name. It's like your bodega guy, It's like your neighbor you might see. You see this guy's face all the time. You get a feel for the type of guy he is, maybe, or whatever. Theory is just learning his name. You know what I mean? Learning what he does for a living or whatever. And that's all that theory is. And it allows you to learn music faster, play it with more confidence, and that sort of thing. So I think theory is indispensable. It's better to learn stuff off the ground floor. It's not that hard, I promise. Especially if you're learning it like little bits at a time, So one of my favorite things is just learning what a scale is. Right? You already know that. Bum 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 bum. You've heard that. That's not like no one's listening to like, I can't. What the heck is going on? Really, you can probably sing it. La da 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 da. And so say you put a chord on the root note of every one of those notes. So this becomes, and then this becomes, and then this becomes, and then this becomes, and all of a sudden you have music. I'm teaching right now in New York City, and I'm also open to doing online, Zoom, what have you, that sort of thing. And if you were to sign on, which I would love to have you as a student, and if you are, please direct message me on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. But I typically like to follow the direction of the student initially. Everybody who picks up an instrument or is guided on some level towards something, whether it be painting or an instrument or a book or something, is feeling something in their heart, and that should be number one, right? If you are listening, say you heard a song that just destroyed you, and I've got to learn how to play that. For me, it was Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. When I was 10 years old, I was watching TV, and there was a movie that had Kashmir by Led Zeppelin in it. And from that moment, as a 10-year-old watching that movie, I said, I have to be able to do that. That my life will not be complete. I will not die complete if I don't know how to play that song. And that was number one for me. And I learned everything by Led Zeppelin because of that. And I think that's a good place to start. So if there's a song, if there's an artist, if there's a thing that moves you, that's where we should start. And if it's a little too lofty, say you're like, oh, arpeggios move me. You can't do that right off the bat. So we'd have to start with some things to get there, you know. But I typically do like to start with the endemic interest, the soul of the student. And there's a lot of little things on the way. Songs that I like, techniques that I think are important, theoretical points that I think are important, and we'll introduce these along the way. And sometimes that looks like maybe a little bit like you bring me a song, we learn it together. Maybe I bring you a song, and I'm like, you got to learn it no matter what. This one's so important, and we'll work things out. But that's, to me, the best way to go about this kind of stuff. Usually people practice harder when they're playing things that they like, and they don't practice as hard when they're not feeling something or think it's bogus. And I like to make sure that everybody's in the place where they're like, I want to practice, I want to get better, I want to develop this skill, and I want to be able to do something that's meaningful to me on a grand and deep level. Thank you for watching this video. I hope I've encouraged you to some extent. And if you're living in the New York area, or you'd like to book a lesson with me online, or whatever you'd like to do, my DMs are open. That should be pretty easy to find. And I'll see you around. Happy practicing. I hope everything works out in your musical adventure, and I would love to play a role in it if you'd let me. Is that good?
Yeah.
That's pretty cheesy, but